Hello and welcome to the Your Holistic Earth podcast. I am your host for this episode, Kimberly Carson Richards. I'm one of the founders of Profitable Impact Academy, and we are the sponsors of this podcast. So if you've never heard of Your Holistic Earth before, it is the bridge that connects you to local and national experts in the field of holistic medicine and wellness. And on each episode, we bring on experts that are going to help you be healthier and have an increased sense of well-being. They're here, they're sharing their modalities, they're sharing the things that they are passionate about, and I know that you are going to learn so much. So I am really excited today on this episode. I get to have a conversation with Lisa Warner. I love Lisa. You are in for a real treat. So she is the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing and teacher of health sovereignty. She shows awakening humans who are ready to take their health into their own hands, how to activate the power that they have to heal themselves. She shows them the brilliance of the body's divine design and teaches them how to break free from the medical mindset so that they no longer have to rely on others for their well-being. And she shows her clients how to see through the eyes of their soul and be the sovereign creators of their own health and happiness. So Lisa, I am so excited. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Love it. Love it. Okay, Lisa. So this is always my big meaty question. It's really tell the viewers or the listeners about yourself and how you help people.
Well, the story about me is, I guess, starting out when I was a very little girl, I had some really big awarenesses that seemed too big for me. As a toddler, I could see that humanity was asleep. It was clear as day to me that people had forgotten their divinity. They had forgotten their infinite beingness, their soul. And at that point, as a little girl, that terrified me because it looked like I was walking around in kind of zombie land with people being asleep. And I knew that when humans were asleep, that people that were really carrying higher truths often got beheaded or got strung up on a cross, or it wasn't always safe to be awake in an asleep world. So as a really little kid, I thought, wow, this is crazy. I'm really not safe here. So it kind of set up a pattern for my lifetime. And as I was growing up, I really had a hard time trying to fit in, trying to figure out how I was supposed to know what I know in this crazy world and fit. So it was always really kind of a struggle. I tried to forget everything I knew. I did a really good job of that for a while. But then by the time I hit my adulthood, I was still really struggling with like where I fit in, where that, where my job was, where my niche in society was. And the more I struggled, the more my body became out of shape. I grew up as a healthy, fit athlete, and I never had to worry about my body. But then when I hit my 30s, I really started struggling health-wise, and I didn't feel like myself, and my body started gaining weight, and it started to not feel good. And I just kind of kept ignoring it, going, oh, it'll be fine, it'll get better. And basically what happened is it did not get better. It just simply got worse and worse and worse until finally, all of a sudden, there I was facing cancer. And I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. All I knew was what not to do, because I had already kind of started on my spiritual path, trying to reawaken to what I remembered when I was a kid. And so I knew that we were creating our own reality. I knew that my inner guidance system was really strong. And every time I thought, well, what do I do? Do I go, chemo or radiation or pharmaceuticals? And every time my body just cringed. And I knew that that was the sign that those were not the pathways for me. And I knew that it was my calling. It was my time to reawaken myself and to remember my mastery and my ability to create my reality. So instead of going the medical route, I started meditating. I started going within, and I started really asking for guidance from the inside. And after a while, what happened was in meditation one day, kind of a whole download of information just popped in. And suddenly I had this profound realization that, oh my gosh, cancer is not what is happening to my body or anybody else's body. Like, my body is sending me a message. All of these cells, all these extra cells, they're my own cells. They're not cells that dropped out of the sky into my head, into my body. They're my cells. They don't belong to cancer. They don't belong to anybody else other than me. And my body I realize that my body speaks in symptoms. It doesn't speak in English, French, and German. It speaks in symptoms. And the symptoms that I was experiencing, that they call cancer, were simply my body's way of communicating with me. And as soon as I had that realization, cancer, the whole idea of cancer just simply dissolved. It simply went away. And I realized that's not what's going on. And from that moment on, I realized our bodies are designed to heal themselves. When we break a bone or we cut our skin, they heal themselves. And I realized that if I got out of my body's way and I started to really trust my body, that my body would heal itself. And even though I wasn't particularly graceful in that process at that time, because I wasn't 100% certain, I still managed to get out of the way, and my body did heal itself, absolutely. So now I teach others how to do that same thing, how to tap into their own inner guidance and to start to develop love and trust for their bodies so that their bodies can heal themselves and we can get out of that mindset of disease.
I love that so much. And it's so interesting because even in your bio, it talked about kind of like the medically focused mindset that a lot of people have. So, because my next question is usually always like, let's talk about the misconceptions that a lot of people have. And so, I'm sitting here thinking, because we are very kind of a disease focused, like you have something wrong, you go to the doctor subscribes or gives you some pills or something, right? We kind of look for this Band-Aid thing. So would you say for a lot of people, would that be their first step, is understanding that there are other options, that they don't have to, the first thing they do doesn't have to be go to the doctor, but to like look within for solutions? Would you say that that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. We are spiritual beings having the physical experience. So as spiritual beings, we are source. We are source consciousness itself. And we are built with everything we need to thrive here on this beautiful planet. These bodies are designed to be resilient. They're designed to self-heal, self-regenerate, rejuvenate. They're built to last. But we have so many misconceptions. We have been trained out of our personal sovereignty. We have been trained from the time we're born that the doctor knows best. And that when any symptom shows up in our body, it means, there's something wrong with me. But unfortunately, this is an incredibly disempowering way of looking at our bodies. And what I learned in my journey is that all of these symptoms, whether it's, coughing and congestion or a fever or diarrhea or vomiting or tumors, these are all part of the body's regeneration cycle. These are all part of the way the body heals itself. Pain is one of the symptoms of healing. We have it completely backwards as humans, because as soon as we start feeling discomfort in our body, we go, there's something wrong with me. But I liken it to, if you have a house and you want to remodel your kitchen, well, what do? You hire a contracting company and you hire the contractors to go in and remodel the kitchen. And the first thing that they have to do is they have to rip out the old kitchen before they can put the new one in. So if you didn't know anything about the process and you just hired a company to do that, and you walked in 3 or 4 days into the process, you'd go, oh my God, they're destroying my house. But that's exactly the point where we come in on the body and we feel the pain or the discomfort, or we hear the noises, the creaking, the squeaking, the coughing, the sneezing, and we go, uh-oh, there's something wrong with me. But we have to start rethinking that, because that's not what's actually going on with our bodies. Our bodies need to rebuild themselves. Healing is a process of rebuilding, of reconstruction. So when we start to recognize that these symptoms are actually signs that the body is regenerating itself, we can take all of the fear out of the symptoms, and we can stop worrying and wondering what's wrong with us. And we can start to look and go, wow, I am in healing. So it's a completely different way of looking at it. And when we have that completely different mindset, the body heals itself way faster and easier than trying to fight against the healing process.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, the other thing too is I think too that sometimes a lot of people, they actually even ignore that their body is telling them anything.
Absolutely.
Right? Like we're so disconnected from the messages that we receive, or that we tolerate instead of like addressing head on when we suspect something is starting to happen. Or that our body is communicating with us. I love that it has its own language and it's communicating. Do you see that? Is that something that a lot of people do, is just ignore that communication that they're getting from their body?
Absolutely. Sometimes I talk about it like, if you're walking down the street and you get a rock in your shoe, a little pebble in your shoe, your body's going to send you a signal like, ouch. And, in that moment, the body's going, hey, there's something in here that doesn't belong. And we have two choices in that moment. We can either stop and take our shoe off and get the pebble out and go on our merry way, or we can go, I'm late, I'm carrying all this stuff, I don't really have time, it'll be fine, it's just that little thing, by the time I get there, I'll take care of it later. But by the time later shows up, now we have a blister on our foot. So all that time, the body was sending messages. And when we ignored the message, the body went proactive, and the body went, well, hey, if you're not going to address this, I'm going to need to protect you. I'm going to need to make a pillow of fluid to give extra insulation between this rock that's not supposed to be here and this delicate underneath skin that has all of the capillaries and nerve endings. Like, we don't need that rock inside the skin. So I'm going to make a blister to protect myself. So that's a pretty concrete example. And we can see that there's nothing wrong with the body. The blister doesn't mean that the body did anything wrong. The pain was the first symptom that the body was going, hey, there's a little thing here, like, take a note. But when it's not a pebble, when it's not a physical thing, when it's an emotional thing, when we have an emotional pain, something that's bothering us, something that's worrying us, something that we feel guilty about or stressed over, those are pebbles in our shoe. And they don't feel good in the body, and the body just starts to, like, it'll start to feel anxious, or it'll start to feel worry, or it'll start to feel depressed. But we don't always listen to those symbols and symptoms and the signals that it is sending. So when we ignore those symptoms that are being sent, then we've got a pebble in our shoe, and the body responds appropriately to that particular pebble, whatever that emotional rock is that's in our shoe. But because we've ignored this and we haven't made the connection, we don't realize that the body is taking action on our behalf. While we're struggling with this emotional conflict, the body is doing something to protect us and to support us. And it's either building up extra cells, or it's depleting the number of cells, or it's starting to play dead. There'll be like a neurological function where muscles aren't working quite properly. And these are all meaningful biological responses by the body. But then when we come to resolution, now the body goes, okay, cool, you finally got the pebble out of the shoe. Now I can heal the blister. And now the body, now that's when the construction crew gets called in to remodel the kitchen. And we go, ow, what is going on? This is terrible. There's something wrong with me. So we have to start rethinking the way our bodies work, because it's so beautiful. The divine design is amazing, but we just haven't understood that. So this is what I do, is to help people rethink the way our bodies function, and to regain trust in our own bodies. Because when we can trust our bodies and we know that they are healing themselves, we can simply support them appropriately through the healing process.
I love that. Okay. Those are, the examples are so good. Like, it just created it so vividly, right? Like, just, is it a pebble in the shoe that you've just been ignoring, right? Like something emotional, it's manifesting in symptoms. So I love that. So when you're working with clients, right? Like, how do you go about, so if they've recognized, okay, this may be happening, there's that pebble, how do you then start working with them to like take them through that process where you do start to trust yourself and in the divine ability, like, of your body? Like, what would typically be their experience working with you?
Yeah, well, first we have to kind of see the lay of the land and how this whole physical game works, so that we can see how the body is designed to function and how we as beings are literally creating our physical experiences. So when you can see kind of the lay of the land, things start to make a little bit more sense, because as humans, we have just been kind of going through life sort of as victims of our reality, going, oh my gosh, I just got knocked upside the head by life. Like, where'd that come from? I don't know. But we're creating all the time, and we're either creating consciously or unconsciously. So I kind of help people wake up to that creation process to see like how things became the way they are, because then it makes more sense. You can put the pieces of the puzzle together, the links of the chain. It's like, oh, I was really having a hard time. My mom was dying, and, I was having a tough time with my relationship. And, then, once she died, then I got diagnosed with this breast cancer, and, I don't know where it came from. But when we look and see the chain of events, that breast cancer came from, in this particular scenario, that struggling with trying to nurture your mother through this time when you weren't able to really effectively nurture her in your own estimation. So when you can see how this got generated, you can start to see like, oh, wait a minute. Now I understand, like, my body was actually trying to help me through this whole time. And then we can start to understand how the healing process works, because there's a specific pattern that the body goes through when it's either building up extra cells or decreasing the number of cells. And then when the body heals itself, there's a predictable pattern. So I help them to see what the pattern of healing is, so that when the pain shows up or the discomfort of that reconstruction cycle, there isn't any fear about it. It's actually like, oh, yay. Like, I feel wow, my hip really hurts. Oh, yes, I am in healing. I healed that. I made peace with that. Now my body can rebuild itself, or whatever part of the body is involved. So it's a beautiful process once we start to understand that divine design.
I love that, divine design. Okay, this has been so interesting, and I could just keep going forever. I just had like an aha about my own self.
Yay.
So Lisa, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. So for anyone that is watching and listening and they're like, okay, I want to know more, I'm intrigued, I think I just had an aha like Kim did, how can they connect with you, Lisa?
Absolutely. They can connect with me through my website, which is connectingyoutoyou.com. I also have a private Facebook group called Soul Sourced Healing. Everybody is welcome to join that in Facebook. I have a YouTube channel called The Simplicity of Self-Healing, the same name as my book, with Lisa Warner on YouTube. They have my book, which is available on Amazon.com, The Simplicity of Self-Healing. And so you can reach out to me through any of those channels, and I'll be more than happy to talk. I am creating a new course. I will be launching that on November 9th, 2020, and be taking people through the process of all the steps needed to really heal yourself.
Love it. Okay. So, and we will include the information for websites and links and everything in the show notes. So you can go check out the notes there to get in touch with Lisa. Lisa, thank you so much for being our expert on this episode. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. Okay. And if you've been watching or listening, don't leave yet. We have so many more episodes for you to go and enjoy and binge listen to. For now, this is Kim signing off. I will catch you on another episode.